Marcus Chen wiped the sweat from his forehead as he crawled through the cramped maintenance shaft of the galactic transport vessel, Harmony's Edge. The ship groaned around him, metal stressed beyond its limits after 3 days of emergency travel through an asteroid field. What should have been a routine cargo run to the outer colonies had turned into a nightmare when their navigation systems failed during a surprise meteor storm. The crew of 47 beings from 12 different species had been working around the clock to keep the ship functional. Marcus was the only human aboard, hired as a maintenance engineer because humans had a reputation for being able to fix things that others couldn't. They were known throughout the galaxy for their stubborn refusal to accept that something couldn't be repaired. "Chen, report," came the voice of Captain Velasque through his communicator. The Zenthari captain's usual calm demeanor had been strained for days now. "Still working on the power coupling to the secondary engines," Marcus replied, his voice echoing in the narrow shaft. "The Carillion crystals are completely fried. I'm trying to bypass them with the backup plasma conduits." "How long?" Velasque asked. Marcus paused, considering the tangle of alien technology before him. Most of the crew had given up on this section entirely. The ship's chief engineer, a brilliant Vorthak named Grix, had declared it impossible to repair without a full shipyard overhaul. But Marcus had seen impossible before, and he had learned that impossible usually just meant nobody had been creative enough yet. "Give me 6 hours," Marcus said finally. "We don't have 6 hours," Velasque replied grimly. "The Hegemony patrol ships detected us 3 hours ago. They're closing fast, and without our engines at full power, we can't outrun them." Marcus knew what that meant. The Hegemony had been expanding aggressively into this sector, claiming any ships they found as salvage. The diverse crew of Harmony's Edge represented exactly the kind of interspecies cooperation the Hegemony opposed. If they were caught, the crew would be separated and sent to different labor camps across Hegemony space. "I'll figure something out," Marcus said, ending the communication. He had been alone in the maintenance sections for hours now, and the isolation gave him time to think. The ship was old, a converted military vessel from the last intergalactic war. Many of its original systems had been modified or replaced over the decades, creating a maze of jury-rigged connections and backup systems that most engineers found impossible to navigate. But Marcus had studied the ship's schematics obsessively during the long journey from Earth. He enjoyed puzzles, and alien technology was the ultimate puzzle. Where others saw incompatible systems, he saw opportunities for creative solutions. As he worked deeper into the ship's core systems, he found himself in a section he had never seen before. The corridors here were different, older. The walls bore the sleek, angular design of original military construction, before decades of civilian modifications had cluttered the ship's appearance. His flashlight illuminated a heavy blast door marked with warning symbols in a dozen different languages. Most he couldn't read, but the human translation was clear enough. "Authorized personnel only. Core systems. Extreme danger." Marcus had seen similar warnings throughout the ship, usually marking areas with high radiation or toxic atmosphere controls. But this door was different. It wasn't locked with the usual electronic systems. Instead, it had an old-fashioned manual wheel, like something from Earth's naval history. He tried the wheel, and to his surprise, it turned easily. The door opened with a soft hiss of equalizing pressure, revealing a room that looked like it had been sealed for years. The chamber beyond was small but packed with equipment Marcus had never seen before. Massive conduits ran through the walls, and in the center of the room stood a control panel covered with switches, dials, and displays. Most of the equipment bore the logo of the original military manufacturers, companies that had gone out of business decades ago. But what caught Marcus's attention was a single switch in the center of the panel. It was larger than the others, protected by a clear plastic cover, and surrounded by warning labels in every language he could recognize. Unlike everything else in the room, this switch seemed to hum with barely contained energy. Marcus approached carefully, reading the warnings. They all said essentially the same thing. Emergency use only. System overload risk. Unauthorized activation prohibited. He pulled out his scanner and aimed it at the switch. The readings were unlike anything he had ever seen. Whatever this switch controlled, it was connected to massive power systems throughout the ship. His scanner detected energy conduits running to the engines, the shields, even the life support systems. But there was something else. According to his readings, the switch wasn't connected to any of the ship's current control systems. It was as if it operated on a completely separate network, one that the current crew had never discovered or simply chosen to ignore. Marcus's mind raced as he studied the readouts. If this switch controlled what he thought it did, it might be able to boost the ship's power output far beyond normal parameters. It could be exactly what they needed to escape the approaching hegemony patrol. But the warnings were clear. Unauthorized activation was prohibited, and the risk of system overload was real. Marcus had seen what happened when alien technology was pushed beyond its limits. Ships had been destroyed, crews killed, entire space stations reduced to floating debris. He stepped back from the panel, his practical mind warring with his engineering curiosity. The safe choice was to report his discovery to Captain Velasque and let the senior officers decide what to do. But they were running out of time, and Marcus knew that most of the crew would be too afraid to take the risk. The ship shuddered around him as the engines strained to maintain speed. Through the hull, he could hear the subtle changes in pitch that indicated the power systems were failing. Soon, they would be dead in space, easy prey for the hegemony patrol ships. Marcus thought about his crewmates. There was Zix, the young Carillion navigator who had dreams of opening his own shipping business. Tara, the fierce Draknari security chief who had become like an older sister to him during the long voyage. Dr. Meln, the elderly Vorthak physician who had spent his life providing medical care to refugees from war-torn worlds. All of them were counting on him to find a solution. Not because he was the best engineer on the ship, but because he was human. Because humans had a reputation for doing impossible things when everything else failed. Marcus looked at the switch again, weighing the risks. The warnings were serious, but they were also generic. They didn't specify what kind of overload was possible or how likely it was to occur. For all he knew, the warnings might be overly cautious, designed to prevent accidents during routine operations rather than true emergencies. And this was definitely an emergency. He opened his toolkit and began connecting his scanner to the ship's diagnostic network. If he was going to do this, he wanted as much information as possible. The readings came back slowly, painting a picture of a ship running on borrowed time. The main engines were operating at 70% efficiency and dropping. The shield generators were overheating from constant use during their passage through the asteroid field. Most critically, the power distribution network was showing signs of imminent cascade failure. Within an hour, maybe less, they would lose main power entirely. But the mysterious switch showed different readings. According to his scanner, it was connected to what appeared to be an emergency power core that had never been activated. The energy signatures were massive, easily capable of boosting the ship's output to twice its normal capacity. Marcus made his decision. He reached for the plastic cover protecting the switch, then hesitated one final time. Once he flipped this switch, there would be no going back. Whatever happened next would be on his shoulders alone. The ship shuddered again, more violently this time. In the distance, he could hear the emergency alarms beginning to sound. They were out of time. Marcus lifted the protective cover and placed his hand on the switch. It was warm to the touch, almost alive with potential energy. He took a deep breath, thought of his crewmates depending on him, and made the choice that would change everything. The switch clicked over with a sound like thunder. The moment Marcus flipped the switch, The entire ship transformed around him. What had been a dying vessel struggling to maintain basic functions suddenly roared to life with power beyond anything he had imagined possible. The lights throughout the chamber blazed with brilliant white intensity, and Marcus could feel the vibrations of massive systems coming online throughout the ship. The background hum of failing power cells was replaced by the deep, steady pulse of something far more powerful. The very air seemed to thicken with energy. His communicator immediately erupted with voices from across the ship. Emergency alerts, confused questions, and excited reports blended into a chaos of noise. Marcus quickly adjusted the frequency to reach the bridge directly. "Captain Velask, this is Chen," he said, shouting over the sound of systems activating around him. "Chen, what did you do?" came Velask's voice, tighter than Marcus had ever heard it. "Every system on the ship just jumped to maximum efficiency. Our power output is reading at levels I've never seen before." "I found something," Marcus replied, looking around the chamber as displays that had been dark for years flickered to life. "An emergency power system that nobody knew about. We've got the power we need now, Captain." There was a pause before Velask responded. "The engine room is reporting that all power conduits are operating at 150% normal capacity. Chief Engineer Grick says this is impossible. Our engines were never designed to handle this kind of power flow." Marcus felt a cold knot form in his stomach. He had known there were risks, but seeing the actual numbers made those risks suddenly very real. "What's our current status with the Hegemony Patrol?" "Long-range sensors show they're still closing, but they've reduced speed. They may be confused by our sudden power surge," Velask said. "But Chen, I need to know what you've activated. The crew is reporting strange readings throughout the ship." Before Marcus could respond, new voices joined the communication channel. Dr. Meln's calm medical tones mixed with the excited chatter of the engineering staff and the sharp military efficiency of Security Chief Tara's reports. "Captain, this is Dr. Meln," came the elderly Vorthak's voice. "I'm detecting some unusual energy readings in the medical bay. Nothing dangerous, but the bioscanners are picking up energy patterns I've never seen before." Tara's voice cut through next. "Bridge, this is security. The weapon systems are showing power levels beyond their design specifications. If we need to fight, we're definitely ready for it now." Marcus listened to the reports with growing amazement and worry. Whatever he had activated wasn't just providing extra power. It was somehow enhancing every system on the ship in ways that shouldn't have been possible with their existing technology. He looked more carefully at the displays around him, many of which were now showing information in languages and symbols he didn't recognize. Some appeared to be monitoring systems throughout the ship, while others seemed to be tracking things in the space around them. "Captain," Marcus said, "I think this is more than just an emergency power system. I'm seeing readings here that suggest this is some kind of enhancement network. It's not just providing power, it's somehow improving our existing systems." "That's not possible," came the voice of Chief Engineer Grix over the channel. "I've been working on this ship for 12 years. There's no technology in known space that can upgrade systems in real time like this." Marcus was about to respond when one of the displays caught his attention. It showed a three-dimensional map of the local space around their ship, but with details that their normal sensors couldn't possibly detect. He could see the three approaching hegemony vessels with perfect clarity, including information about their weapons, shields, and crew numbers. But what made him freeze was what else the display showed. According to these readings, there were two other ships in the area that their normal sensors hadn't detected. Ships running in complete stealth mode, positioned between Harmony's Edge and the Hegemony Patrol. "Captain, we may have a bigger problem," Marcus said, studying the display. "According to these readings, there are two unidentified vessels in our area. Stealth ships, positioned to intercept us." "That's impossible," Velask replied immediately. "Our sensors show nothing but the Hegemony patrol ships." Marcus double-checked the readings, but there was no mistake. Whatever this system was, it was providing sensor data far beyond their normal capabilities. I'm transmitting the coordinates now. If I'm reading this correctly, we're flying into an ambush. There was a long pause before Navigator Zix's young voice came over the channel. Captain, I've adjusted our sensor array based on Engineer Chen's coordinates. He's right. There are 2 ships out there, running full stealth. They're positioned exactly where we would have to pass to escape the patrol ships. The revelation sent a chill through Marcus. The hegemony hadn't just stumbled across them by accident. This had been a planned operation, with stealth ships positioned to block their escape route while the patrol ships herded them forward. Captain, he said, I think we need to consider that this isn't a random encounter. Someone wanted us to be caught. Before Velasque could respond, new alarms began sounding throughout the ship. But these weren't the familiar emergency klaxons Marcus knew. These were deeper, more complex tones that seemed to resonate through the hull itself. The displays around him suddenly shifted, showing new information. What he saw made his blood run cold. The enhanced sensors were now tracking the weapons systems of all 5 ships in the area, and what they revealed was terrifying. The 3 patrol ships they could see were armed with standard hegemony weapons. Powerful, but nothing their enhanced shields couldn't handle. But the stealth ships were different. They were carrying weapons that the display identified as planet crackers, weapons powerful enough to destroy entire worlds. Captain, Marcus said, his voice tight with fear, those stealth ships aren't just there to block our escape. They're carrying planet-killer weapons. This isn't just about capturing our ship. They're planning to destroy us completely. The communication channel fell silent for a long moment. Marcus could imagine the shock on the bridge as they processed this information. They hadn't just stumbled into a patrol sweep. They had walked into an execution. Why would they want to destroy us? Zix's voice asked, confusion and fear clear in his tone. We're just a cargo hauler. But Marcus was beginning to understand. He looked around the chamber he was in, at the advanced technology that nobody had known existed, at the displays showing sensor data beyond anything in known space. Whatever this ship really was, it wasn't just a converted military vessel. It was something far more significant. Captain, he said slowly, I don't think Harmony's Edge is what we thought it was. This technology I've activated, it's not from any known civilization. The power systems, the sensors, even the way it's enhancing our existing technology, this is something completely different. Dr. Mellon's voice came over the channel, thoughtful and careful. That would explain why the hegemony is willing to use planet-killer weapons. If this ship contains unknown technology, they would see it as a threat worth eliminating rather than risk it falling into the wrong hands. Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. By activating this system, he had revealed something that powerful forces wanted to keep hidden. But now that it was active, they had capabilities that might actually let them escape. Captain, he said, making another decision that would change everything, I think we need to stop running and start fighting. These enhanced systems aren't just defensive. If I'm reading these displays correctly, we have weapons capabilities now that nobody knows about. There was a sharp intake of breath from Security Chief Terra. Are you saying this ship was designed as a weapon? Marcus looked at the displays showing the approaching enemy ships, then at the readings indicating the vast power flowing through systems throughout Harmony's Edge. The pieces were starting to fit together in ways that both excited and terrified him. I think this ship was designed as something far more important than a weapon, he said. I think it was designed as hope. The displays around him suddenly shifted again, and new information began flowing across them. Information about the approaching ships, about their weaknesses, and about exactly how the enhanced systems of Harmony's Edge could exploit those weaknesses. Marcus realized that the next few minutes would determine not just their survival, but possibly the fate of every free species in the galaxy. Whatever the truth about their ship was, they were about to become the most important vessel in known space. And it was all because one human had been too stubborn to accept that a switch was too dangerous to touch. Marcus stood in the hidden chamber, watching as the displays revealed the true nature of what they faced. The incoming ships weren't just a threat to Harmony's Edge and her crew. They represented something much larger and more dangerous. "Captain," he said into his communicator, "I'm downloading tactical data to the bridge now. You need to see this." On the screens around him, Marcus could see detailed schematics of the enemy vessels, their weapons, their crew layouts, and most importantly, their mission orders. The enhanced systems weren't just providing sensor data. They were somehow accessing the command networks of the attacking ships. "Chen, how is this possible?" came Velasque's voice, filled with amazement and concern. "These readings show that you're accessing encrypted hegemony military communications." Marcus studied the flow of information across the displays. "I don't think this is our technology accessing their systems, Captain. I think this is their technology recognizing something it was designed to respond to." The truth was becoming clearer with each passing moment. Harmony's Edge wasn't just carrying advanced technology. It was built around technology that the hegemony had been searching for. Technology they both feared and desperately wanted to control. "Bridge. This is engineering," came Chief Grix's excited voice. "The power systems are showing readings that shouldn't be possible. It's as if every component on the ship has been upgraded to specifications beyond current galactic standards." Dr. Meln's calmer voice followed. "Captain, I've been analyzing the energy signatures throughout the ship. This isn't just advanced technology. The energy patterns match theoretical models for technology from the ancients." The ancients. Every species in the galaxy had legends about them. The mysterious civilization that had supposedly existed millions of years ago, leaving behind only hints and fragments of technology so advanced that modern science couldn't understand it. Most considered them nothing more than mythology. But Marcus was looking at proof that they had been very real. "Captain," he said, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what he was realizing, "I think Harmony's Edge isn't just carrying ancient technology. I think it's an ancient ship, modified and disguised to look like a normal cargo vessel." The communication channel fell silent as the crew processed this revelation. Then Security Chief Tara's voice cut through the quiet. "That explains why the hegemony wants to destroy us. If word got out that ancient technology still exists and works, every power in the galaxy would be searching for more." Marcus nodded, even though she couldn't see him. "And if the wrong people got control of it, they could dominate the entire galaxy. The hegemony would rather see it destroyed than risk that happening." But as he studied the tactical displays, Marcus began to see something else. The enemy ships weren't just planning to destroy Harmony's Edge. According to their mission orders, they were planning to destroy the entire system, every planet, every space station, every living being in the area. They weren't taking any chances that word of the ship's true nature might escape. "Captain," Marcus said urgently, "we're not the only ones in danger. The enemy's mission parameters include sterilizing this entire system. There are 3 million people on the mining colonies here." The gravity of the situation hit everyone at once. This wasn't just about their survival anymore. 3 million innocent lives hung in the balance, and Harmony's Edge was the only thing standing between them and annihilation. "What are our options?" Velasque asked, his voice grim but determined. Marcus looked at the tactical displays showing their enhanced capabilities. With the ancient technology fully active, Harmony's Edge was more powerful than any ship in the enemy fleet. But power alone wouldn't be enough. They needed strategy, and they needed to act fast. "I'm seeing weapon systems that were never on the original ship schematics," Marcus reported. "Energy weapons that can penetrate any known shielding, Defensive systems that can create protective barriers around other ships. Even some kind of faster-than-light communication array that could warn the colonies. Can we fight them? Tara asked bluntly. Marcus studied the tactical analysis flowing across the screens. The ancient systems were providing real-time combat projections, showing dozens of possible battle scenarios. Most ended with victory for Harmony's Edge, but the cost would be enormous. "We can win," he said finally, "but not without casualties. And even if we destroy this fleet, the hegemony will send more, bigger fleets. Eventually, they'll bring enough firepower to crack even ancient defenses." "Then what do you suggest?" Velasque asked. Marcus looked at another set of displays showing the ship's communication systems. The ancient technology included capabilities that modern science hadn't even theorized. Real-time communication across galactic distances, sensor networks that could monitor entire star systems, data storage that contained the accumulated knowledge of a civilization that had spanned millions of worlds. "We don't just fight them," Marcus said, an idea forming in his mind. "We expose them. The ancient communication system can broadcast to every major world in the galaxy simultaneously. We show everyone what the hegemony is really willing to do to maintain power." Navigator Zix's voice came over the channel, excited and hopeful. "If every species in the galaxy sees them trying to destroy 3 million innocent people just to cover up the existence of ancient technology, it would unite the free worlds against them," Dr. Meln finished. "They would face rebellion on dozens of fronts. But there was a risk. Broadcasting their location and the truth about their ship would make them a target for every major power in the galaxy. Some would want to study the ancient technology. Others would want to destroy it. None would be content to leave it in the hands of a small cargo crew." "Captain," Marcus said, "if we do this, there's no going back. Once everyone knows what Harmony's Edge really is, we become the most hunted ship in the galaxy." There was a long pause before Velasque responded. "And if we don't do it, 3 million people die, and the hegemony gets closer to controlling technology that could enslave the entire galaxy." Marcus looked around the chamber, at the ancient technology that had been hidden for so long, waiting for someone desperate enough or curious enough to activate it. Someone human enough to flip a switch everyone else was too afraid to touch. "I'm activating the galactic broadcast system now," he said, his fingers moving across controls that seemed to respond to his thoughts as much as his touch. The displays around him lit up with connection points across the galaxy. Thousands of worlds, millions of ships, billions of beings would soon know the truth about what was happening in this remote system. But first, they had to survive the next few minutes. "All hands," came Captain Velasque's voice over the ship's communication system. "This is your captain. We are about to engage enemy forces to protect the lives of 3 million innocent people. We fight not just for our survival, but for the freedom of every species in the galaxy." Marcus felt the ship respond to the captain's words, or perhaps to his own determination. The ancient systems surged with power, and he could sense weapons charging, shields strengthening, and engines preparing for combat maneuvers that would defy every law of physics he knew. Through the enhanced sensors, he watched the enemy ships react as they detected the power surge from Harmony's Edge. Confusion turned to alarm as their own instruments registered energy readings that shouldn't have been possible. The lead patrol ship began transmitting on emergency frequencies, calling for immediate reinforcements. But it was too late. The galactic broadcast was already active, and the truth was spreading across the galaxy at faster-than-light speeds. Marcus smiled grimly as he prepared to guide Harmony's Edge into battle. The enemy had made one critical mistake. They had assumed that the crew would be too afraid to use technology they didn't understand. They had forgotten that humans specialized in using things they didn't understand and making them work anyway. The first enemy ship fired, and Marcus watched through the ancient sensors as their weapons struck Harmony's Edge's shields, and simply disappeared, absorbed and converted into additional power for their own systems. The ship that everyone had thought was just a converted cargo hauler began to show the enemy what ancient technology could really do. And across the galaxy, billions of beings learned that the legends of the ancients weren't just stories. They were a promise of what was possible when courage met curiosity, and when someone was brave enough to flip the switch, everyone else was afraid to touch. The age of the hegemony was ending. The age of humanity's place among the stars was just beginning.